Okay, so now we're going to do the rest of the shapes and go through them, one by one. But we want me to take as long. There's not as much to explain. But before I can get into that, I want to explain the basis of what these objects actually are. Anytime you bring in a new shape, what you are essentially doing is creating a group with a solid and a line. When you select this and you go to your properties menu and you look at the labeling, it's a group of two objects, a line and a solid. The line is technically the smart portion of this. And you can see that by ungrouping. So we're going to type in ungroup, and you'll see that this is no longer a group. I can move the solid away independently. Now we have a line and we have a solid. If I double click the solid, nothing happens. The quick properties comes up and shows you that it's a 3D solid. Okay, it's just a dumb solid. The line, however, is a smart line. If I double click this line, my dialog box pops up. So what's happening here is the line is what's controlling the solid. Anytime we make modifications to this line, like changing the shape or stretching it, what it's doing is it's regenerating a new solid. It's not actually stretching the solid because, as you know, you can't stretch 3D solids. They just move. But you can stretch a CADWorx object because if you stretch the line, as long as the end of the line is within your stretch window, it will regenerate the line. You'll even see. You can see what's happening here. As I'm doing this, you can see the phantom movement. It wants to move the solid as part of the stretch function, but CADWorx prevents that from happening and instead regenerates the solid to be the same length as the line. So you're working with groups here. And that's important to remember because things that affect groups affect CADWorx groups, or CADWorx steel groups. CADWorx structure works very differently, and I'm not going to go over that, but CADWorx structure came out in 2017, and it's kind of a different beast, and it operates differently, and it's coded differently, and all that kind of stuff. So this is all based on CADWorx steel. So, all right, so we got our groups. Let's erase these. So now we're going to go over channels, probably one of the next most common things you're going to use. Let's draw a line. Actually, I'll just insert it by points. So we're in channels. There's two different channel types, your American Standard channel and your miscellaneous channel. The main difference being the width of your flanges. I've used my share of MCs just because they've got longer flanges or wider flanges, and so they're stiffer. But commonly, something like a C8 by 11.5. Again, you'll choose your insertion point. When it comes to insertion point on channels, your mileage may vary. You can put it where you feel it's best. Some people might put it in the center of the channel, and this is the midpoint of the channel, not the gauge line. They might put it in the center of the face of the channel. I personally always put mine in the top corner. It's a work point. When I use it for platforms, for supports, it's going to be your top of steel elevation. It's also going to be a work line. You're more likely to put your work line on the face of the channel. So top corner is my spot. As far as centerline location, again, it's top, center, or bottom, wherever you want to put it, top, center, or bottom. When you insert a channel, unlike a wide flange, and I'm going to explain something here in a second too. Unlike a wide flange, the center line will eventually be placed in the corner. You'll notice that even though we put the center line location at the top and we put the insertion point at the top, it's not on the corner. That's because there's an offset. For channels and angles and T's, there is what's called the steel neutral axis, and this center line is placed on that steel neutral axis. So if I place the center line location in the center, you'll notice it's not on the flange. It's because it's set to the steel neutral axis. There's a setting that can change this, and you're going to want that because when you're dealing with single line steel, you're going to want, and just in general, you're going to want this line to be on the back side of this channel. It's going to be easier to work with when attaching this to other beams and things of that nature. It can get real confusing when you're working with that steel neutral axis because it's not like an even dimension. It's not something nice. I'm going to modify this real quick. You can follow along with this or just let it happen. You can tell your CADWorx manager that this needs to be changed. If you put in a channel and you see this and you want this work line to be on the back side of the channel, here's the way you change it. You go to Plant, you go to Setup, you go to Configuration Settings, you scroll down until you see Steel Neutral Axis. Change this value to 3. Say Apply and Close. Actually cancel, save and close. We're going to save it back to the file. And I may have to restart. No, I don't. And there we go. Setting that value to 3 puts the center line on the back side of the channel. So if I change it to the center, you can see it's also on the face of the channel. All right. So back to what I was saying. Unlike wide flanges, when you set it to the top and bottom, it kind of overlaps the solid. The grip for the solid is the same as the grip for the center line. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes it may be a little obscured and hard to see, but that center line is there, and it will always grab the grip of the center line as well as the solid. So when you go to stretch this thing, it will stretch it just fine. So don't worry about that too much. If you grab that grip, you're fine. So, all right. Okay. The other thing with channels is that when you place them, you're going to get the option to flip them because they're not symmetrical, or completely symmetrical like a wide flange beam. They can be towed either direction. So when you place a beam, I'm going to pick 2 points here, you get the option to flip or just exit. If you choose flip by either typing in F and then enter or clicking flip, it will flip, and it will keep flipping back and forth if you keep clicking flip. It's just hitting F for that option. So you can pick which direction you want it to tow, because that's going to be something you're going to want to do from time to time. You can choose which direction it's going to want to tow. You also get this option for angles. So channels and angles, you get to choose how you want to whether you want to flip that flange. When you go to modify it, that option becomes available here. It was not available in what do you call it? In the wide flange beams. So you're going to want to flip that flange. If you need to, you can flip it, uncheck it, check it, and it goes back. So, and that's it for channels.